This is an SM Media production.
Hi, folks, and welcome to our latest episode of the SM Media Euro 2024 show. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We are recording this right after the opening match of the tournament. Germany 5, Scotland 1. And I don't know where to start, but to join me on this episode, it's a pleasure to welcome from the Evening News, John Greechan. John, welcome to the show, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on. Sorry, it's not under better circumstances.
Oh, well, at least it gives me someone to moan at after the game instead of my family.
Right, I want to come across this we are going to be negative. We should put that as a disclaimer. We can only be negative after that. But I want to come across it and look if there's anything to take from it. And the one thing I will say, John, and I don't know if you agree or not, I thought first 10 minutes Scotland kept it fairly compact. As I say, that was obviously the only way they were going to get anything out of it. And then it just one wee lapse in judgment and lapse in concentration, and it kind of just turned into a rout from there, didn't it? I mean, it just was as bad as I think we could have all have feared, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be negative. I think it's important to be really analytical about it as
Yeah.
well. The way that Steve Clarke and his coaching staff will be now,
Mm-hmm.
and there however many 4 days or whatever it is, 5 days before we get the next game, they will. You can't just say, "Oh, it was a bad day and we didn't play well and they played really well." You've got to break it down into areas. I think you're right. Yeah, the first few minutes you're looking at it thinking, okay, well, we're going to be camped in a bit here, but that's fine. I genuinely think the goalkeeper should do better with the first goal. And
Yeah.
that's the start. He should also do better with the fifth goal.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot else that goes on, and there were a lot of things went wrong before it even gets to that point. To give the boy a shot from the edge of the box like that, and that just kind of knocked the wind out of our sails. And that was it. When you lose that goal, particularly against a team, listen, we all knew how good Germany were. I'd flagged it up often enough, done a bit of analysis on Twitter, put out there as well. You know, the way they play with that 4-2-3-1, and they have Gundogan and Wirtz and Musiala moving all around. They're a nightmare to play against. An absolute nightmare.
And when you give players like that, I mean, we all know, like, people will listen to the podcast in the past know I'm a massive fan of Jamal Musiala. Like, I think he is one of the brightest players in world football. But one thing you don't do is you don't allow him pockets of space. Now, part of playing with a back five entails coming out when you have to. Now, it's difficult when you've got two floating number 10s like Wirtz and Musiala who are so technically gifted. But I'm looking at Toni Kroos, and I know that Toni Kroos is one of the best players we've seen in this generation of keeping the ball tidy. It's scary how much space he had in a lot of that first half. Now, you can put that down to two things. You can put that down to trying to keep the score down even when it goes 1-0, because from there you can't really do much, because when you lose that early goal, it just is a massive blow. We've seen that in the past. But I just thought it was scary, the amount of space that the German players were picking up. It was, I mean, Havertz was dropping back. Wirtz and Musiala were coming in. I thought Kimmich was terrific all game, but I thought even some of the space he was getting was out of
Yeah.
control. There's just so much to unpack, and but it's more the pockets of space that they were able just to fall
Yeah.
so easily into.
Yeah. If I had my tactics board here, I would draw it out for you. But the
Yeah,
whole joy of the 3-4-2-1 is that it gives the opposition an extra line they have to play through. They have to play
yeah,
past the striker, then they have to play through your two number 10s, then or number 8s, then they have to play through, so that's the way it should work. And it gives you that. You've heard loads and loads of coaches talk about having the box midfield, and it's brilliant because it gives you kind of superiority in the middle of the park there. I don't blame Steve Clarke for saying, look, we just need to go 5-4-1 because we're going to be up against it here.
mm-hmm.
But if you're going the 3-4-2 and it makes it harder for them to do that, but then you're having to push your wing backs on a bit, and then you leave Musiala and Wirtz to run up against your centre halves. Bizarrely, I would have been more comfortable with that than I was with, Wirtz running Anthony Ralston all night. No, I would rather have had even Porteous before his red card. He's made one good tackle on him, robbed Wirtz of the ball, Tierney's made a good kind of shoulder charge on Musiala, cleared the ball off him and given it the full roar. So I thought, like you say, the first 10 minutes, your left and right centre halves have won one-on-ones. You know, they've come out on top in one-on-ones against Musiala and Wirtz. And you're looking, well, that's how it should be. And you're going to have to take that chance every now and again. But dropping back into that 5-4-1 means Cruz was always going to drop between the centre halves to get the ball, get on it, and just start picking passes. And then Gundogan is, you know, he can find space anywhere. He plays the ball on the half touch, not even one touch. It's the half touch. It's gone. It's gone before you've even thought about closing him down.
Yeah. And again, these German players, and we look back, there's not a lot of hype getting into this German side, and we'll talk about this obviously a couple of days ago. Like, there's not a lot of excitement in that German team. I think that will have changed tonight. Like, but they also will look at this going, we're not going to get this amount of space in any other games. Switzerland and Hungary aren't going to afford pockets of space the way. I don't think so anyway. I mean, again, I might be wrong, but I just looked at times, and again, we'll get into the red card in a minute, which is fairly horrendous to be honest. But I thought Musiala, even just the second goal, it's people know that I really rate Callum McGregor, but I just look at this kind of that flat four, and I think if there's any one of the four in that midfield that it doesn't suit, it's absolutely Callum McGregor. And I thought he got absolutely punished. I thought he got punished tonight. I thought there was a lot of times where and he gets caught with the second goal because he makes the first mistake, which again can happen. But he's trying to make up for that, and it leads to the second mistake, and it allows Musiala to get in again. And it's just that sort of level of protection that McGregor is so used to giving other players isn't there for him in that flat four.
I love him as well. I think he's one of the smartest players that we've ever had in a Scotland jersey. But I think there's a wee reminder tonight that there are levels in this game, aren't there? And as much as we would expect that with Anthony Ralston, who's not a first choice at Celtic, or even Ryan Porteous, who's playing Championship, it was a little bit shown up there with Callum McGregor that, you know, there are levels. These are guys playing in Champions League finals and excelling and winning Bundesligas and everything. And winning La Liga titles. There's a level there where you just got a little bit caught. He wasn't alone, by the way, because I thought McTominay was anonymous.
I remember saying to my partner, I was like,
McGinn and Christie, they did a lot to do.
Yeah,
I get on it. I still think I can't believe that we've ended up, 3 years on from the last one. Was it 3 years?
Yeah.
Aye, from the last one. You don't play Billy Gilmore in the first game. Just play Billy Gilmore. It should be the golden rule for Scotland manager. First game of a tournament, go out and play Billy Gilmore. You know why? Because he's one of your best footballers.
And he would have retained the ball as well. That's a big thing.
And I know he doesn't give you, he's maybe not as physical and, doesn't give you the hard running that a Christie would, but just play Billy Gilmore. It should be golden rule number one.
Yeah. If it was 2-0 going in at half time, although I think the game was gone, I think it would have been kind of damage limitation second half. But you write a lot about Hibs, right?
Yeah.
I've been fairly opinionated in the past about Ryan Porteous. I've been very, very clear. I think he can be a very, very good defender. And we saw that in his early Scotland days where he was very, very effective. But he does these weird things, and this is another example. He does very well to get in front, but he just makes that really silly mistake of just going in with the studs up, and we've seen it from him so many times. He can't help himself, and it just takes away from what I think can be a good player.
Yeah,
it's so bad. I mean, it's just the game's gone at that point.
So it's a split-second thing.
Yeah.
So you always want to be careful of that. My son is 15 years old and a Hibs season ticket holder and loves Porto. Absolutely adores him. Think he should always be playing. And he was like, "Oh, it's never a red." And then I was reading Dale Johnson from ESPN saying that on Wednesday, the referee supervisor had explained that anything leaving the ground and making contact above the foot is a red card.
Yeah.
No excuses. And it said he used about 3 or 4 video clips to show of it. And in fairness, the wee man says to me, "How many of those involve Porto?" He says it was just videos of Porto's tackles over the years, and it's like because he just does it, doesn't he? He's just like flying in, and it's like what are you supposed to do? He's got to throw himself in it when the ball there, whether he means it or not. Whether they're trying to take that tackle out of the game as well, they're trying to take that out of control thing out of the game. And the argument is you're probably not supposed to tackle there. You're probably just supposed to let the goal go in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then because otherwise you've given away the penalty and the red card.
And it's such a cool penalty as well, isn't it? I mean, Havertz is someone who gets maligned, but the coolness to do that, and again at 3-0, you're thinking this is just a case of keep the score down.
Yeah.
That is where we're at. But I thought the sub at half time. Now I get why Che Adams comes off, and I get why he wants to go to a flat back five. But what that completely offered you was no out ball, because Scotland were able for the first 5 minutes to get a couple of chances going and a chance to go up the park, but there was absolutely nothing there. And
Yeah.
what did you think of the Hanley for Adams sub? Because I just thought it was very, very strange. But there's part of me that understands it.
I think you're seeing that so you're 3-0 down to 10 men against the hosts in their stadium in the opening game. You've got a bad choice and a worse choice,
Mm-hmm.
and then an even worse choice. Those are the only there's no good option available to you there as a coach. It's what do they talk about? Star Trek fans know it, the Kobayashi Maru test, where there is no victory out of it. There's no good decision you can make here that's going to lead to anything other than a heavy defeat. So I get why he did it. Again, I think when you see even when Shanklin came on, and we got a little bit up the park a bit by doing that, but then you're giving up chances as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm almost even at that stage. We were having a chat about it during the game, and you're thinking maybe if you're going to have to play this, 5-4-1, you're going to have to rely on your wing backs a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So do you change Ralston? Do you put even a James Forrest on? I know it's not. He's not going to be nearly as physical, but he's going to do the work, and at least gives you an out or somebody else
Or
out there.
something like put Tierney there, and I know it's he's
I
out of
know it's more
position,
than
but
no. Yeah.
you're even thinking just
I
try and
thought,
get up the park. But
and I thought taking Tierney off was weird unless you're at the
yeah,
stage then of just like I'm just protecting you for the next game.
yeah,
And also, the big number nines come on, so you need a bit of height and strength in there. And Hanley was struggling, to be honest, in that situation as well.
and he hasn't played a lot of football as well. That's the
No,
thing as well.
no.
And to put him in that position, I thought was difficult. Ralston, I kind of think Ralston was just exposed. Like it's not, and it's unfair because this is the hardest team Scotland will come up against.
Yeah,
Like, we
he's
know
not
that.
used to this, and there was an element. There's a little attack when Germany went on, and you could tell Anthony Ralston was running back, thinking, you could see it. I hope this doesn't come here.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go one-on-one with
And it
Musiala.
gave me vibes of 3 years ago with O'Donnell. Like
Yeah, you just
that's
like he knows how good he
yeah,
is. He's a very very fine footballer to a certain level, and he's the best we've got. So
yeah,
God bless him, and you got to love him for it. You got
yeah,
to love him for going out there and putting in everything. It's not his fault. Not his
yeah,
fault that Jamal Musiala is probably going to turn him inside out every now and again. And I think you need to come back. Somebody had a clip the other day because obviously it was the anniversary of the opening game against Brazil,
mm-hmm.
France '98, and it was a clip of, Big Colin Hendry getting turned inside out by Ronaldo, the
Yeah,
Ronaldo. And the greatest part of Craig Brown's man management was in that game. Before that game, he said to his defenders, "You're going to be made to look like an idiot today, right? He's going to turn you inside out. Don't worry about it."
yeah,
And I think there has to be an element of that with Steve Clarke now to his defenders. Musiala, Wirtz, Gundogan, we're not facing that again in this tournament unless we get to the quarterfinals or the semi-finals. So
yeah,
don't worry about that, you know?
yeah. I remember Craig Brown telling me a really, really good story at the time that game. He spoke to Bobby Robson regarding Ronaldo.
Yeah. Oh,
And he
yeah.
said, Craig Brown asked Bobby Robson, "How do you stop him?" And Bobby Robson goes, "You don't. You just try and contain him." And it kind of sums up the game, doesn't it? And I really thought Scotland tonight, they came up against a terrific talent. I think Jamal Musiala is was sublime tonight. Like he was, it was almost a play. It was a pleasure to watch. It really was.
Yeah.
And you do have players like that. Like you do. Like I thought Scotland tonight again. It was damage limitation. What we spoke about it a lot over the week. It was this is the game where you have to just be as narrow as possible. You have to keep it down. You've got a chance in the next two games, but it all depends on keeping this score down. Like if again you can lose, but you don't lose heavy. And
Yeah.
tonight it was just that it just went completely wrong. Cruz as well. I thought 99% of his passes I saw he completed there. He's just a class act, isn't he? Like, he's just terrific.
The guy's how many Champions Leagues has he won? I mean, there's a reason he's continuing to play in that. And he was first choice in that Real Madrid team.
Yeah.
He's just a ridiculous footballer. You do see players like that sometimes, even against Scotland. You've seen them over the years. I remember seeing Belgium at their absolute peak coming out, and you thought, I'm glad I saw De Bruyne do that. Even England, glad I saw Jude Bellingham playing like that again. Even if it was against us, you like to see these players doing it.
Yeah.
And I think Musiala is one of them. Thank God Musiala didn't declare for England. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
They'd have been shoo-ins this
I'd have
summer.
even more talented. It would have been sublime. We're delighted to be joined by Alex Banks. Alex, we're obviously just going through the game as a whole. First half, it was a bit of a doing, and it was one of those things where the red card obviously just kind of completely takes it away. But just first half, it couldn't have went any worse.
Yeah, thanks for having me first and foremost. But yeah, it just started really poorly and never changed. I didn't agree with the setup, to be honest. I thought I would have had Billy Gilmore in there, and we didn't really have anybody comfortable on the ball. And from the get-go, you could see every single ball that we had just got hoofed up to absolutely no one, and we trapped ourselves in. And I think even for the first goal, it comes from they put us under a little bit of pressure. All of a sudden, we're forced to just launch it clear. They work it back in well. I think that a good couple of switches of play, which for a back five, we should be able to deal with the width, and we weren't. We were far too narrow. Take nothing away from Germany. The finishes were absolutely superb, and Musiala and Wirtz taught a few of our players a good lesson, especially in the opening half. Porteous red card does change it a lot, but yeah, it was already kind of lost by that moment.
John, I'm just looking through the kind of overall stats here that we've got. Germany 72% possession. Scotland obviously 27.2. Germany shots 20, Scotland shots 1. Shots in target, Germany 10, Scotland 0. XG 2.17 to 0.01. I think that tells the whole story. Touches in opposition box 30 to 2. I mean, it really just looks, it looks bad, and it was bad. Like,
yeah, I think we've got a pretty good goal conversion rate, though, haven't we? No shots
yeah,
on target.
it's all right.
1-0.
Yeah.
Nice touch from the big boy Rudiger there. The possession one was never going to be. So we didn't want possession
No.
tonight for most of the game. Even with 11 men on the park, you're not gonna, and that's fine. I think we'd have been quite happy if we'd have kept 11 men on the pitch and got a 0-0 and it was 65-35. I think Steve Clarke would have walked away and they'd probably doing lap of honour, tactical masterstroke. You've just kept them where you are. But I agree with Alex saying there as well when we talked about it or before you came on, Alex, but you play Gilmore to give yourself control. Whatever you're doing with that back five, your wing backs need to be really aggressive and jumping on the guys first. I know it might be Musiala and Wirtz, but on their first touch, got to be right on it. And the amount of times balls came over and Robertson kind of, I'm just going to hold back here and see what he does. And Ralston didn't quite it. I thought Ralston was actually, by the way, decent when we just shell balled on top of him going the other way, which against lesser teams might not be the worst idea. We don't have Dykes up there anymore to just go, look, we're going to play this ball. You're going to charge up there and we're going to flick it in the way that, remember, Scotland used to use Lee McCulloch as a wide kind of target way back in the day.
Well, that leads me to kind of my next point. Like, do you change it up completely for the next game? Because I've seen people saying, oh, we can't try a 5 again, but I think it's been so set in stone. Like, you can't go away from it now because it's a complete change. Like, a year ago, we're looking at the qualifying campaign and we're thinking this five at the back thing's an absolute genius move. Like, we're doing it well.
It's not a 5 normally, though, is it? It's a 3.
No, it's not.
It's a 3-4-2-1, and that's what he'll play in the next game.
It's not going to be a 5 in the next game. But
no,
I thought tonight there was times it didn't look a 5, and when you're playing with a 5, you have to have McGregor. If it was McGregor, McTominay coming back, and I just thought it afforded so much space. And I don't think Hungary and Switzerland have those type of the 3 or 4 players who can find those pockets of space. But it's still a massive problem area. You have to provide some sort of protection. Alex, I think the one change I would absolutely have to make is Gilmore has to play second game just for that control, just for that keeping the ball in tight areas, because I looked tonight and at the start of the game it was a wee bit of a worry. Like, we know what Christie can do. Christie can get you forward. McGinn is good at carrying the ball. McGregor brings you that stability usually. McTominay's your kind of goal threat, but there is a massive area in there for ball retention, and as John rightly points out, just that level of confidence that I don't think was in that Scotland side tonight. That has to be their second game.
Yeah, it absolutely has to be. And obviously Steve Clark talked about getting 4 points and that would be the kind of target. And you know, with 4 points you all but do make it out of the group. You know, there's no denying that. So but you don't want to go into the last game needing a win. You know, a point in the next game wouldn't be enough for me. We have to go out and try and win it. So I think the first thing I would say is on Ralston is probably one of the changes. And I'll agree with John there that it is usually a three at the back, and that would mean for me, why don't we bring in James Forrest? You know, I think that is an option that we should definitely look at. I thought Cal McGregor was poor tonight, but that's pretty out of character for him in a Scotland shirt. You know, he does usually give you a consistent 7 out of 10, but he would be the one of the two that I would take out. And I think Billy Gilmore being in there instead of him would just give a bit more freedom to Scott McTominay as well, which is something he definitely didn't have tonight. And it wasn't to be expected, but he definitely didn't have. Just needs to be a stronger back line. You know, it's obviously the other change will be Porteous out, but yeah, no matter what happens, it just has to be a stronger back line. And I think the confidence was kind of lacking. And before the first goal even went in, we looked a little bit beat tonight. So we can't allow that to happen. It has to be a fast start in the next game.
Obviously, as well, John, Germany, it kind of says the strength and depth they have. They obviously bring on Füllkrug and Sané. I thought Füllkrug again, he just brought a different type of physicality that Scotland hadn't had. Like Havertz, one thing he isn't a physical threat. Füllkrug is. The fourth goal as well. Just there's a lot of really good finishes tonight, and I just thought the fourth goal was the pick of the bunch, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a great player, absolutely great, and he's entirely different to anything else they've got. He's probably the reason why many people have gone from sort of sleeping on this Germany team to suddenly saying, actually, you know what? They could win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Not because he's your starter, but because that's the guy you can bring off the bench to do that. I mean, you can also bring off Leroy Sané and Thomas Muller, who's no bad. You know, they've got incredible strength and depth. It's going to be interesting to see this tournament take off, I think, as well, in terms of excitement now. The only thing that works against it is the Euros are so big now that it's a foregone conclusion that you're a German football fan and your average German man in the street would be like, well, we're getting through anyway, so we're not really that interested. There's no peril or trepidation where you're playing for a place in the last 8 in the group stages. So
yeah, absolutely. In terms of the fifth goal as well, obviously with the offside, that I thought again it was a nice bit of movement just to go, but he obviously just goes a wee bit too early. Again, Alex, I just thought this German side, I thought they would do well. Like I thought they're kind of. I had a similar feeling that I did in 2006. I was like, right, this German side might be getting to the early stage. This might be their kind of kicking point on to maybe going towards the future. But I think now looking at them, just what we've seen tonight, some of the patterns of play I thought were terrific. They've got a lot of class that we're mentioning. Obviously, if we come on, Gundogan still does it at that age. Kroos was terrific. They've got a lot of talent with Musiala. This German side look now like they could be here and now instead of maybe a 4-year project down the line.
Yeah, and one thing that you've also got to say is they've got a lot of young talent, but they also have a lot of experience. There's a good mix in there. You know, when you have players like Toni Kroos and Manuel Neuer who have won trophy after trophy, year after year, that builds into the younger players' mentality. And I mean, Florian Wirtz has then just gone and done an invincible season with Leverkusen. You know, Jamal Musiala is playing for Bayern Munich. These guys, they know what it means to win. And I think for Germany being in their home country, and obviously they would be one of the favourites anyways, but with Nagelsmann in charge and as a young side, I think there is just so much hope for them, and I think they will feel like they can go all the way and win this. I think now is probably the time for them because other teams have young players coming through, but they maybe need a little bit more experience or are not the right balance. But I think Germany really have that balance, and what I don't think there's anything they're missing. They really have a good player, or at least a consistent player to play in every single position. And as John said, you then look at their bench, they've got the likes of Sané, Muller, Füllkrug tonight, who all come on and make a good impact. For them tonight as well, John also said, it's kind of we will be making it out of the group stage, and then we'll kind of pay attention. That meant that tonight they had to put a marker down. So no matter how good we played, they were always going to be putting 110% in to go, look, this is what we are. And they did that.
Yeah, absolutely. John, there was something to cheer about from a Scotland perspective. Austin McPhee looks the hero of the evening. It was a set piece. It was, again, McKenna, I think, does quite well because he does obviously put Rudiger under a bit of pressure. And it just, again, it's in a night there was very little to cheer about. It gave us a wee bit of a lift, didn't it, just to get some sort of a score. I think the Germans, you could see the rage in the German side when the goal went in. But
raging. Manuel Neuer was raging.
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah, that was good. I was really interested in this whole idea of John McGinn going and standing on the post at free kicks. I'd love to sit down with Austin and figure out what that's about. I'm sure there's a brilliant reason for it. He puts a lot of thought into these things. That's a good free kick, and it's worked. And he's always got the pressure on whenever there's a free kick. As he says, as a set piece coach, people just assume, well, why aren't you scoring from this? You've worked on this. Steve Clark looks at them and gives them a bit of a bollocking if they don't score. And you know what? At 4-1, you'd have said, okay, we'll take this. The 5-1, I don't know what, it just makes a difference. It just feels a whole lot worse. Just felt, scoring the last goal and making it 4-1, you'd have gone, well, we've shown a bit of spirit and come back here. But the fifth was just like, I back in your box.
Yeah, and the fifth goal's well worked as well. As I say, it is just a case of Emre Can, who 48 hours ago was sitting on a beach, is now in the squad. And it's kind of that weird thing of Scotland, isn't it? It's like the most unlikely thing. 48 hours ago, Emre Can's probably thinking, I'm never even playing in the Allianz Arena. He's scoring. But again, we spoke about Angus Gunn, Alex. I think he probably should save that.
Yeah, and from Angus Gunn's perspective, he'll be disappointed with his performance tonight. There's no doubt on that. And I think it will probably raise a couple of question marks, but it shouldn't, because he was an upgrade on David Marshall, and he has proved this point and why he is number one at the moment, because he has been so good in the build up to these. People have an off night, and unfortunately, too many Scotland players did tonight, and we just looked beat before we were beat. So it's a hard one, but I probably agree. I think there's maybe a bit of noise over the first one as well, which I didn't think was as much his fault. But yeah, he definitely didn't have a great night tonight. As for Emre Can, he has a point to prove. He has to. He has just got into this squad, but he's not going to be wanting to have just been brought in to sit on the bench and come on and solidify midfield. He wants to be in there so that he can start, and doing something like that isn't gonna do him any harm.
John, it's easy after a game, and we're literally just 45 minutes after the game's finished, looking at it, and there probably still is a little bit of early anger to look at. We'll probably calm down by the time this goes out in the morning. But where do you look at now in terms of the next game? Obviously, Wednesday night's coming thick and fast. We're going to get your thoughts on Hungary, Switzerland in a moment. What do you want Clark to change? What do you like? I've not heard his post match yet. As I say, I'll probably listen to it after the game. But what needs to be addressed before Wednesday night?
One thing you can guarantee, he's not going to be bounced into doing something ridiculous and ripping it up and starting again. I don't think he should either.
No.
I think he goes back to his 3-4-2-1 and plays it as properly as a 3-4-2-1. I think he brings Gilmore in somewhere. That might not be McGregor, even though we were both talking about McGregor getting a wee bit shown up earlier. It might be Christie that drops out. It's slightly, and you can push McTominay a little bit further forward. I think he obviously has to make a change in the defence. He loves Grant Hanley, so I think he just sticks with Grant Hanley in there. I think Alex makes a good point about the wing back. Do you go for an attacking player on the right then? Just to to get us forward more and get on the ball. And you would hope Steve Clarke will plan to have more of the ball. He wouldn't have planned to have the ball tonight too much. There would have a lot of work, and the build-up to that game would have been on the shape out of possession, which is what makes it disappointing that it didn't really work. But he will be planning to have more of the ball in the next 2 games.
Alex, what do you kind of want to see on Wednesday night? Like, I'm kind of torn on. I don't think tonight. I think tonight he was obviously going to play Adams, but do we maybe see Shankland in on Wednesday just to, because you need. I mean, you need to chase now. I mean, you can't, like, tonight. You could have put Adams in there just to use his pace and try and kind of bring through the midfielders, trying to get them more space. But I don't know if necessarily if you're because Scott, as you say, I think I would take a draw, but looking at the second game, you can't get into that hungry game like they did against Croatia and be really needing to chase that. You need to try and get the job done second game. Do you go with Shankland in that? And it's a really tough one. It is. I think there's going to be a lot of decisions to be made between now and Wednesday.
Yeah, I think Shankland, it's a difficult one because in Hearts form, you'd probably say yes, but in a Scotland shirt, he's maybe just not shown that fluidity enough. You know, he looks like he's running in mud most of the time. So it's not great to be in a position where you're choosing a striker based on who's least worst at the moment. But I think Shea was decent in both of the warm-up games, and obviously he got his goal against Gibraltar. So I'd probably stick with him. Switzerland are no mugs. You know, they are a decent side, and they'll be looking to get out of this group and potentially, you know, do a bit of damage and maybe even pull off a shock on Germany if they can. But you know, their eyes will be on Hungary, and if they get a result of that, then they're thinking beat Scotland and we're qualified. So there's a lot of pressure on that game. And I think although they are no mugs, we need to realize internally that neither are we. You know, we have quality players that play in the Premier League, you know, which is the one of the best leagues, if not the best league in the world, self-proclaimed best league in the world anyways. But yeah, we have a lot of good players. I would go for Shea Adams. I think somebody that's I think it's not going to happen, but I would take John McGinn out before I took Ryan Christie out. I thought Ryan Christie was somebody who could hold his head high tonight. He just seemed to chase a bit better. I like Christie. I think he's quite positive, and although he does send most of his shots into the car park, I do rate him, and I do think attacking movement wise, he is a good player. So John McGinn's not going to drop out of the Scotland squad if we're honest, but I would rather see that than Ryan Christie drop out. So yeah, there are a lot of decisions to be made for Steve Clarke, but he has to get them right.
McGinn's strengths work more against the Switzerland and Hungary than they would against Germany.
100%.
So therefore he will automatically be better.
And I think you'll see a better McTominay as well, because as you say, there will be a bit of cover for him, because I thought tonight he was the one as well. Like, I was even thinking at halftime, does he push him back a bit? And I was like, no, that's a disaster if he even attempts that. Fortunately, he didn't. But I think you will see a better side. I think just bringing Gilmore in there just makes a difference. And I'm not saying that Gilmore's going to be a complete, do you know what I mean? Like, ace that he's going to change everything. Scotland are going to win, and we're going to be talking about the last 16. That's not going to happen. That's probably not going to happen. But it does give you a level of ball retention that I just don't think was in that Scotland side tonight. Now, on to Saturday. We've got 3 games to talk about. We're just going to preview them before we wrap up what has been a very, very busy evening. Obviously, the 2 other Group A opponents, Hungary and Switzerland, take occasion at 2:00. John, I think these are 2 very evenly matched sides. I find them very hard to split. From a Scotland point of view, I think a draw would be an absolute stroke of genius if we could get that. I think we'll all be looking for a draw. I don't think this will be a classic, but I can see it being 2 very, very evenly matched competitive sides. But how do you see it going?
A draw, 4 red cards, 3 injuries each. That would do us. They're good teams, and what they are is they're good tournament teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Switzerland, just having that experience of it, and it was something that was talked about even at the end of the last Euros, that Scotland would benefit from having been at a tournament, and that it does give you something. It gives you a little extra understanding of how to deal with the rhythms of it and everything that it brings. So hopefully we see that when we come round to it. But I'll watch Switzerland-Hungary, but I'm a wee bit scunnered after tonight, to be honest. So you're like, aye, whatever happens there. And you're almost watching it as a Scotland fan going, it'll be, whatever happens, it'll be the worst thing for us. That'll be bad for us. So we'll find a way of making that bad for us in our own brains.
Yeah. Alex, a draw would obviously just it's not going to ease the pressure at all, but it's what it would do is give you some sort of target to aim at, because if Switzerland only got a point or even lose, then you could get into the Switzerland game with a massive chance of certainly making that third spot a real option. I think a draw is written all over this, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we're probably hoping so. The only result that would, or the worst result for us, would be a Switzerland win, and that's just that's just on the way the next fixtures for us lie. You know, if Switzerland were to come away with the points, all the pressure's on us in that game. You know, they can come away with the point knowing that they're above us and we're all but done. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, because I think across the board, Switzerland have better quality than Hungary, but Hungary do have some quality players and some players who stick out. Obviously, Dominic Szoboszlai, who's been a great player for Liverpool this season, and I just think, yeah, they have the opportunity to, especially with him, cause danger from set pieces. And yeah, I think it will be a good game. I think, I think it will be, if it's a draw, I can't see it being a 0-0 draw. So when it's a 0-0 draw, don't come back to this, but I can't see it being a 0-0 draw. I'm going to go 2-2.
Okay, on to 5 o'clock. The first game in Group B, Spain, obviously two-time champions of the tournament, take on one of the most consistent tournament sides in the past decade, Croatia. John, I think this has got the makings of a really tasty encounter. You've got a Spain side that's a lot of young attacking talent coming through, and you've got a Croatia side who I think have got one last big dance. And I think this is a makings of quite an exciting encounter. Kind of edge to Spain, to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think just the edge to Spain, given the quality they've got in virtually every position, as opposed to Croatia, still have that small nation thing of one or two positions you look at and go, well, I'm not sure about him.
Yeah.
But it's got the potential to be absolutely wonderful, doesn't it, in terms of the actual football talent on display there. Anytime Luka Modric is on a pitch, you just want to watch. We were talking earlier about guys you were glad you saw. Like even at the last Euros, you're watching Luka Modric destroy us, going, glad I got to see him do that, because he's special, beyond special.
Yeah.
And Spain are so exciting at the moment with the talent they've got in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, Spain, Croatia, probably the highlight of day two. How do you see it going?
Before, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, John. See, when I watch a player tear Scotland apart or my club apart, the only thing I think is, wow, I hate that player, and I hope their career from this point forward falls apart. Spain, Croatia, I can't see this going any other way but Spain. There is a kind of generation of Croatians coming through with Josko Gvardiol, but the likes of Luka Modric is aging, and yeah, it is probably an aging squad, and they're just they're always that team that are kind of just there, semi-finals, finals. I mean, they do really well in the World Cups, and I think they are a good tournament side. But Spain, they've only lost twice since the last World Cup. Obviously, one at Hampden Park. I think they'll be too good for them, and I just think the likes of Rodri in that midfield just too strong to kind of build a base and counter attack against anyway. So I think Spain will probably dominate the game, but it will be a tight scoreline in their favour.
And then on to 8 o'clock. On paper, looks very one-sided, but John, I think with Italy, Albania, I think I'm speaking to obviously a Italian journalist for the preview, and he said something very interesting. He said this is an Italian side that, yes, they won it 3 years ago, but they haven't qualified for the World Cup since then. They've lost Chiellini, Bonucci, Verratti's no longer there. They're really lacking in the number 9 area. And I don't think there's a lot of optimism with this Italy side going into this tournament, but you would imagine they would still have enough to beat Albania.
we were an Italian team in turmoil.
Yeah.
I go. I'm older than most, so I can
Yeah.
go way back to '82.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I mean, World Cup, and it's like, no chance. No chance, this team. Look at the chaos it's been, the scandal. I mean, they just have a way of getting it together in tournaments. They should be far too good. You look at the quality in their team. I think, however far they go in the tournament, this is another example of, that's a really strong group, by the way, but there still is, because of the expansion of the tournament in recent years and recent additions, there are weaker teams in there. Probably Scotland might be one of them in some people's view, but you're Albania and it said Georgia in at this time, there are probably weaker teams in there. So it's a little bit less dramatic tension, you would imagine. So 1-0 Albania then, right?
Yeah. Alex, could that Albania goal scorer be a former Aberdeen midfielder in the form of Yabir Ramadani?
No, because Albania aren't going to score. Italy, I had high hopes for them at the last one, but by no means were they favourites. And they went into the opening game against the so-called dark horses, Turkey, and absolutely tore them apart. So I think that there is this kind of there's almost this Scotland to Italy in terms of they just shut everything down, and as soon as there's a chance to be negative, they're very negative. Outlook on their teams and media wise, and they do shut everything down and kind of go, one loss is the end of the world. So I think that this will probably be the most straightforward game for Italy. They do have two other very difficult tasks, and I think that Croatia will cause them a lot more problems than they will Spain. So Italy know they need to get a result, and I think they will. Scamacca is probably the only answer in their number 9 role, and it's not the best answer, but it's something. And I do think that he has the ability to score, and they can cause problems throughout the tournament. But I think the bigger teams will be a struggle for them. But I can see them putting Albania aside pretty easily.
Yeah, well, we will be here to cover that on day 2 of the action tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. To my guests tonight, who have went through a very, very difficult evening and we're off. The tournament's off to a flyer, so shall we say, for the Germans, but certainly not for us 3 Scots in the podcast tonight. To my 2 guests tonight, it's been an absolute pleasure. First of all, to John, thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, mate. There's not enough beer in Bavaria to take away the pain of that one, but enjoyable to come on and chat through it anyway. It's like therapy.
It is absolute therapy. And to Alex, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess the good thing about tournament football, it means that there is a chance to get over it pretty quickly.
Yeah. 3 games tomorrow. Enjoy them, folks. We will be back first thing on Sunday morning with your look at the day 2 action. Thank you very much, folks. We'll see you all soon.